Hi guys, this is the advisor and welcome back to my channel. On Sunday, June 28, 2020, Matthew Smith, most popularly known as Rygin King, was shot. He received 3 bullets to his body and was left crippled. 2 other women who were in the car were shot up, and those 2 women died, and 2 other men in the 3-vehicle motorcade he was traveling in were left nursing gunshot wounds. So in all, 5 persons were shot. Anyway, but this incident is an extremely sinister one. There are a lot of details about this which leaves a lot of questions to be answered. All right, this was a Sunday evening. They were coming from a funeral in Westmoreland, and they were traveling back into St. James because Rygin King, he was born and grown up in Montego Bay. So he was heading back into Montego Bay. But the route he was taking, he was going north. He was heading north through Darliston and was heading towards Betheltown. The whole idea was that he would go cross the border into Hanover and then turn east and enter Montego Bay from Hanover. Anyway, while they were traveling, when they left through Darliston and heading towards Betheltown, right in the vicinity of Struy district in Westmoreland, a car rammed into the manager's vehicle. His manager was in a vehicle in the middle. Let me explain now. The manager and his wife and their 2 children were in the middle vehicle. It was 3 vehicles. The vehicle in front contained Rygin King and 2 of his 3 children, his 2 eldest of his 3 children. And the vehicle at the rear contained 2 couples, and they were all traveling together, heading back from the funeral, back home in Montego Bay. Well, they were not close to each other, obviously, and Rygin King looked like him and shot it to get back home. But he noticed that his manager, who was second in line and who was behind him, after a few miles, he couldn't see him. So him called and said, "Brethren, where you there? How me not see you or the other vehicle?" And the manager said, "Listen, I just met in an accident. I'm here with a lady and we are trying to sort out the papers. So I'll soon be with you. Just I deal with this." Rygin King, the decent person that he is, what did he do? He turned back. He said, "All right, I'm coming back to see what happened." By the time he reached there now, the vehicle at the back with the 2 couples who were traveling with them, that car drove up and stopped behind the manager's car. And then Rygin King also drove up and they parked. Rygin King now parked on the other side. And he come over and they were all discussing, to do with the car. They were exchanging details and so on, deciding who was wrong, because right now I don't know who was wrong. But they were trying to exchange details. But what's puzzling me is that it took, they were there exchanging details for 45 minutes. While exchanging details, I hear that one of the things that was happening is that the lady kept saying, "Listen, my husband is close by. I need to call my husband." And she got on her cell phone and she was calling her husband. But so they were waiting on him to come. I don't know that some of the documents for the vehicle, the husband had them at home and he needed to bring them come, like the insurance and fitness and so on. They had it in this other vehicle. Anyway, they were there waiting. And it so happened that during the wait, after about 45 minutes, another car just drove up. Somebody came out and just started blazing bullets. Cuss some bullet a big dirty clot and then start blazing up the vehicles with bullets. It so happens that 3 of the people in the back vehicle got shot. The two men and one of the women. In the manager's vehicle, the manager's wife, she got shot and she died, as well as one of the women in the back. And Rygin King received 3 bullets. And then the person just jumped back in the car. The killer just jumped back in the car and made a hasty exit, heading back north towards Hanover. Anyway, well, I'm going to use a word that Sir P from Politics Watch say. He said this is spooky. Here is what is spooky about it. After the incident, to this blessed day, we don't know who that person is who they ran into, who they had the accident with. The police has no report about the person who they had the accident with. So in all that 45 minutes, that lady didn't have even a driver's license to show that you can say this is the person. They had no documents for the car whatsoever. No, that is really, really strange. So what you're waiting 45 minutes for? Why didn't Rygin King call the police? That's another thing. Why they didn't call the police to come on the scene, since as they were already there for so long? And another thing, why did this happen? Why was he targeted? Well, to the best of my knowledge, what I've heard is that this man, Six Boss, the same one who gave Andrew Holness, our Prime Minister, the name Bro God, the name that the Prime Minister of Jamaica hug up. Yeah? The name that that man hug up and love, the nickname that he got from this mass murderer. He hug it up, this man named Squash. I hear that Squash wanted Rygin King as a part of his own team. He wanted him to be under his command because Rygin King was really one of the hottest, if not the hottest DJ dancehall artists at the time. He was trending in every country across the globe. And he was making millions just from the showing of his videos on YouTube and Spotify and in other places. And he was touring. He was touring Europe and so on. So it was the hottest thing. But I hear that Squash, one of the most toxic individuals on the planet Earth, wanted a piece of the action, and he wanted Rygin King. Rygin King decided that he's not going to work with anybody toxic. He's going to stick to the people that he knows and he's comfortable working with. So he was working with some producers. He was working with a producer called Damage, one called Kylie, and one called Dynasty. And those were the 3 that he decided that he were working with. And the manager that he had, who was in the front vehicle, who lost his wife in that same incident, his wife was shot and died in that incident. His manager, Mr. Blackwood. Now, Mr. Blackwood, I hear that word come down that Rygin King should fire Blackwood and let, at the very least, Squash send a manager to manage him. A manager owned and controlled by Squash. And at that time, Rygin King still refused. So I don't know if his Squash really do it, but we know that parasites like these is definitely capable. If they can't have you, they would rather nobody else get you. If they cannot suck you dry, then nobody else should have you. It's better you are not on this earth. That's how these the level of toxicity of these people think. But I also hear that one of the things is that even another bitter poisonous one who was in general penitentiary, Vibes Cartel, wanted a piece of Rygin King's action. So it could have come from there too. But let's look at these two toxic people. Remember now, Rygin King was born and grown up in Montego Bay. Squash born and grew up in Montego Bay. Squash have his six camp, and he's a six boss, and he's a quote unquote producer, which is just another way of saying I am a Don and I want me little yenge around me. And that is, he used the producing tactics or the producing cover to lure in talented people and exploit them. And Rygin King didn't decide that he didn't want to be part of this exploitation. So the people who came more than likely came from the orders to do it, probably came from Squash. But what I'm saying is, to this blessed day, Rygin King has refused to give even a statement to the police as to the description of the lady and the name of the lady who was involved, who had hit into his manager's car. Why? That's what I cannot understand. What is he hiding? Because to me, Rygin King seemed to be a very, very decent fellow. He seemed to be very decent. He doesn't seem that any of the toxicity, despite being in Montego Bay, it doesn't seem on the face of it, that he is involved in any of the toxicity at all that surrounds dancehall in Montego Bay. But here's what I think. The reason why they send a woman to intercept him, remember that basically night was coming down, because when he left the funeral, it was late afternoon. And if night catch him on the road, it might not be so easy to really intercept them and do what they have to do. So they have to do it. And when they realize that the team, the woman, as far as I'm concerned, she was a lookout. She was there to look out if any cops were on the road and to see where they were so that they could have been intercepted. When they realized that night was coming down and they may reach a point before the hitmen, or the duppy truck, as we would call it, according to the Klansman, before the duppy truck or the vehicle with the murderers could reach them, they had to stop them at a point to be sure they can get to them before they reach back into a built-up area. So they wanted to do it on a lonely spot. And because apparently the vehicle that was to do the hit wasn't close by, the only way they could stop them was to stop them by hitting the manager's car and stop him. On the pretext, with the knowledge that Rygin King would turn back and they could pin him down and hold him at one spot. So when that lady was on her phone, saying she talking to her husband and directing the husband to where they were to bring the car documents, apparently she was in touch with the gunmen and was directing exactly where to come. Because here is what happened. Just after the shooting happened, the car with the lady disappeared. The car with the lady disappeared. So you explain. So she wasn't a person who even went into the police and said, listen, I met this accident, I saw what happened. She disappeared. Now what does that tell you? And where the gunmen turned, they head north. In other words, they head north into Hanover. Apparently, they're going back into Montego Bay to report to whoever sent them from Montego Bay, more than likely. To what I'm hearing, the police, what I'm hearing from the Westmoreland police is that a proper description of the car was not even given. All we hear it was as a light blue car, but we don't get no description to say it was a Toyota or a Nissan or what. I don't even know if the manager has even told the police the make or model of the vehicle that ran into him. So, Mr. Ramsey, if you had, we would like to know. Rygin King, luckily you survived. You're in a wheelchair now, and you're still turning out hits. More power to you. I just wish you would continue to turn out these hits continuously to help your family. You still have your 3 kids and you still have your wife, you know. Brethren, all I have to say is stay positive. And if there's anything more you know that can help the police, continue to help them. The police needs your help. Guys, if you had watched the video preceding this one, the one entitled Why Dancehall is the Main Breeding Ground for Murderers, then you will understand what next I'm going to say. If you haven't, then you really need to go and take a look at that video. It's entitled Why Dancehall is the Main Breeding Ground for Murderers. And in that video, I had mentioned a guy called Progress. Now, Progress had a decent name. He didn't have a name that was toxic, like most dancehall artists' name. He had one which have a very progressive name, if you will, no pun intended. Now, Progress, in order to gain some street cred, what Progress did, was he did a video that claims that he was being arrested and charged for gun. Which it seems he was just doing a video and putting out a rumor to make it look like he was a bad man. Because it's the only way to survive in a toxic world. Even if you are not toxic, you have to pretend to be toxic. And dancehall is the most toxic environment on the face of this earth, virtually. So what Progress did with such a decent name, he wouldn't get any street cred. And he felt that he could not succeed without street cred. So what Progress did, he may make a video and put out rumors that he was being arrested for gun crimes. Right. Now, I said that to say this. Rygin King. If you listen to the name Rygin King, or if you have any idea what Rygin is, let me give you guys this. Rygin was in the 1940s to 50s. There was a man in Jamaica called Rygin. And Rygin was the first bad man, the first notorious bad man. Well, him and a guy, another one called Wappy King. You might have heard of Wappy King. Well, Rygin was the one who, he had 2 guns, 238, and he was creating havoc in Jamaica. The first real Jamaican bad man. Now, he has gone down in the annals of Jamaican crime statistics as the wicked man who shoot up enough people. And this was from the 1940s, 1950s. Now, why would a decent, upstanding fellow, I assume that this guy, Rygin King, is decent and upstanding, why would he call himself Rygin? Why would he even give himself any name similar to that? And now, I'm going to tell you why. You see, since the level of toxicity in dancehall is so pronounced, it's so interwoven with violence. Dancehall is so interwoven with violence and mayhem that you have to get to either act evil or call yourself evil. And Rygin King, I think Rygin got that name, or took on that name, from the notorious murderer called Rygin. Now, just like how we have shock crime, Skeng, Laden, and Keda, and those names that just oozes evil and toxicity, I think Rygin King was not a bad person, but he had to get some street cred, and he's got his street cred by focusing on that name. So that is the level of dancehall why I think dancehall is evil and something needs to be done about dancehall. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think. Give it a like and place something in the comment section. Let me know what you think. And if you have not yet subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.